Welcome to Profit Boss Radio, where successful women have paved the road to their own financial freedom. Each week, your host, Hillary Hendershot, financial coach, money mindset expert, and experienced wealth manager, will help you discover the keys to the wealth and peace of mind you want and deserve in her no-nonsense and authentic style. Starting right now.
Welcome to episode 39. My guest for you today is a personal and professional friend of mine. She's amazing. Her name is Amy Mewborn, and as a special treat, she is offering you a free Kindle version of her new book, which we talk about today in the episode. Amy is a 20-plus year business veteran. She's worked with owners of large organizations like Ford and Chuck E. Cheese, as well as small business entrepreneurs. She left her finance career to open multiple San Diego fitness studios and then found her way back to finance and advising as a business strategist. She created a program called Studio in a Box that is designed to help women open successful fitness studios without the fees and rules of a franchise. Most recently, she launched her business site, Business Success Simplified, which is designed for women entrepreneurs who want to grow and scale a business with technology and automation, taking the lessons she's learned in growing her own business and boiling them down to 20 to 30-minute training sessions with action sheets to make action and implementation manageable, even for women who are afraid of technology, including me. Her best-selling book, The Great Escape, The Successful Woman's Guide to Escaping the 9-to-5, is designed to help women build a life they love through entrepreneurship and have a life of financial and lifestyle freedom. So today's episode is for you, Profit Boss, if you are itching to get out of that corporate gig and start a side hustle or start your own business. To grab your free copy of Amy's new book, head over to hillaryhendershot.com/39. Amy, welcome to Profit Boss Radio.
Thanks, Hillary. I'm super excited to be here.
I can't wait to get to this interview. Tell me, because I know it's been a long time in the works, what motivated you to write this book?
Oh gosh, there have been so many things, but I think the biggest thing is that I feel like women in particular really need a simple, easy resource to help them better understand kind of where they want to go with potentially launching or growing a new business. For me, I spent 18 years in finance. And when I decided I wanted to be an entrepreneur, there was really, I didn't feel like anything, there was nothing out there that just was kind of that little one-stop shop where I could go and get some of the basics about establishing my personal finances and then how I was going to integrate that with business finance and what it was going to be like to actually hire my first staff or hiring an attorney to help me protect my business and my personal wealth. So I felt like there was something missing in the marketplace.
You know, actually, now that you say that and I think about it, I think you're spot on. For example, I have always thought that there would be classes or workshops everywhere, how to start a business, like the basics, the real basics, when to put someone on payroll versus to make them a 1099 employee. Do you need to apply to the city for a license, or can you just do it? Or, you know, very basic things like that it's actually really hard to get the answers to. I've never quite understood who's offering that information.
Well, I think one of the big challenges is that every single state and every city is different.
Right.
And I couldn't necessarily teach someone in Florida exactly what they need to know from a book or from a course, but I can absolutely give a list of the things that are common. And then here are the things that you need to keep an eye out for. And oh, by the way, if you're going to launch a business, you better have an attorney, because so often I keep talking to women who create these businesses and I ask them about their legal documents and they're like, oh, I did it all on LegalZoom. And I'm not saying that LegalZoom can't give you some pieces that are valuable, but you really want someone, I feel, to come and check behind you and make sure that everything that you're doing is appropriate and that it's not going to one day come back to bite you in the butt.
right? I mean, we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves, really digging into actionable items right up front, and that's okay. But I think you're spot on. The legal aspect of your business specifically is absolutely impossible to get a sense of just by Googling articles or reading online. I mean, it literally is something you have to just learn the hard way, because legality is all about precedent. And so the only people who know it are the people who are doing it. And they aren't interested in writing a blog about it. They're interested in you hiring them and getting paid to do it for you. So I get it. And I know you've mentioned lawyers a couple times, so we'll come back to that. But first, I want to play. So let's just pretend if you are a profit boss and you're listening to this episode and you have had the thought, I think I could start my own business. I think I would love to be an entrepreneur, but I'm making six figures, right? I am not a spring chicken. I'm 35 or older, let's say. Let me just play devil's advocate, Amy. I mean, if she has a corporate career, she has security, she has a steady paycheck. I mean, life is what you make of it, right? Is entrepreneurship always better?
No, absolutely not. If you have a job that you love and a steady paycheck, and you are genuinely able to live the life that you've kind of dreamed of, then I would say don't even consider being an entrepreneur, because being an entrepreneur, you often are actually working harder and working more than you may be in corporate America. It's kind of amazing. But if you feel pulled to bring something to the world, or you feel pulled in a particular direction, then I do believe that you should be listening to that.
What do you mean we work harder? It's 2 a.m. on a Saturday morning, right? That's normal, right?
Yeah.
Just
People
kidding.
have no idea. Honestly, as a business owner or as an entrepreneur, people have no idea when they're getting an email from you at 3:00 on a Sunday morning. And they're like, did that really get sent out at 3:00 on Sunday morning? Yeah, I'm kind of a night owl. And so, your schedule is kind of no longer your own. And as entrepreneurs, we often talk about freedom. And yes, we do what we do for freedom. There are a lot of Wednesday afternoons that here in San Diego, if it's sunny and 80 and I want to go out to the pool, I absolutely can. But I might be paying for it on Saturday afternoon while everyone else is out doing something else.
Okay, so let's take a woman who's a little bit further left on the spectrum, and I just picked left because I don't know, it could be right, whatever, but there's a voice talking to her in her head, and it's not the kind of voice that means she's psychotic. It's a good voice. And it says to her, you have a business baby to give birth to, but she's scared, she's doubtful. How can she start to put her ducks in a row? How can she do an apples to apples comparison or weigh the options? How does she know if she should take that step?
Well, first of all, I think that the first step is always to really do an inventory of where you are in your personal finances. Do you have a savings account where if you were going to go and try to launch a business, do you have enough to subsidize that business, but also your lifestyle for a period of time? Most businesses that I know that have failed have often failed because they were undercapitalized and really couldn't power through any struggles that came up because they didn't have any money.
Okay, what do you mean by undercapitalized?
So, for example, if someone wanted to go and open a fitness studio, and I'm going to say that because that was how I actually left corporate America, you need to have money to get the location built out. You have to have money to do the marketing. You have to have money to make the payroll. You have to have money to make the rent. There are a lot of different expenses that come into starting a business. And even if you just want to be a solo entrepreneur and work from your own home desk and your own computer, there are going to be expenses, email marketing programs, web developers, all of the things that you may need to potentially get your business off the ground. So you need to know where you are currently in your financial situation. And then you need to have a business plan for where you want to go with your business, how much you think that's going to cost, and what it looks like for potential revenue and then profitability down the line. Because one of the conversations that I'm often having with women business owners is, let's just say you want to build out a location and they're talking about outfitting it with the prettiest chandelier and the nicest granite countertops when you walk in and all these things. And you absolutely want everything that you do to be on brand, but you don't want to spend so much that you're going to be working forever to make back your initial investment.
Right. Maybe your brand needs to be TJ Maxx for the first couple years.
For just a little while, that's okay. You can do a really nice job with TJ Maxx.
You sure can.
So it's really about, I believe, making sure that you understand your current financial situation, what it's going to take to launch this business, and then what it's going to take to actually build that business. Because I'll tell you, everything that you think, it's probably going to cost you more. So if you budget that, let's just say you want to run a business from your desk and you're thinking, oh, it's going to cost me $5,000 to get that business off the ground. And then you meet your first web developer and they tell you that their bill is $7,000. And you're like, uh-oh, I've already blown my entire budget and I haven't done anything beyond build a website.
Yeah, that's called the planning fallacy. There are actually whole economics thesis papers written on it.
Sure.
However long you think it's going to take you and however much you think it's going to cost, probably double it.
Yes, exactly.
Would you tell us a little bit of how you came upon this knowledge? Would you tell us your story? Because I think it's a really impressive one.
Sure. So for me, I went to college to be an orthodontist and I took my first college chemistry class and I decided, this is just not for me. I am not doing 12 years of this.
Turns out I don't like braces that much.
So I took my next college class, which was accounting, and I really loved the concepts of accounting, but I really wanted more direct one-on-one client access. I kind of am fed by dealing with people. And so I went into financial planning. I started with American Express back in Chicago and moved to San Diego and joined a small multifamily office here in San Diego. And what that means is it's a very limited clientele. We only had 35 families. And I would say that of the 35 families, probably 25 of them were business owners. And some of them owned large real estate investments. Some of them owned Ford dealerships. Some owned Chuck E. Cheese restaurants. Mm-hmm. So a number of different large companies and small companies.
So you're getting access to the lifestyle of an entrepreneur.
Oh, it was amazing. I mean,
and they all happen to be really wealthy. All the ones you're meeting.
They've been wildly successful. They're often planning for their families and transferring money to the next generations. So they're very, very forward thinking. And so I would often come home and say, literally, I sat at the dining room table with some of the coolest, most interesting entrepreneurs in all of the country. And one of the things that I kept finding, though, is that unfortunately, most of these families were very patriarchal, and the men made, I would say, 99% of the financial decisions in the family. And I tell a story of one of the women that her husband owned a very large corporation. He had terminal cancer. He knew he was not going to be around for long, and he literally left her with next to no financial education or preparation. And I feel like...
Very common, by the way, very common.
Yes. He did her a tremendous disservice because he passed her the baton and she basically had $10 million, but didn't know how to write a check.
Right. Sometimes widows don't even know where the money is, don't know where the accounts are, don't know how to get there.
Right.
Yeah, it's sad.
So one of the things that I knew at that time was I was just tremendously passionate about empowering women. And it is one of the things that I believe will probably carry forward in every decision I ever make in my business, is that everything I do, I want it to empower women to be able to make better educated decisions and feel confident in the decisions after they've been made.
So you're seeing these women, and it's a whole new world to you because it's like multi-millionaires. And then there's all this weird dysfunctional behavior with it that leaves the woman kind of lost, emotionally distraught, and resourceless.
Sure. I mean, just imagine one day having someone that has taken care of everything for you. Then all of a sudden they're gone. You miss the companionship. You miss the person that has been there and been your primary cheerleader a lot of the time. And then all of a sudden you're also handed this tremendous responsibility, because often if a husband is going to pass the baton to his wife, he's often telling her, well, here, don't mess it up because we still want it to go to the kids. Well, that's an awful lot of pressure. So I feel like the more that we can do in the financial space to educate women in finances, in entrepreneurship, in business management, any number of things, we're going to better position women and ultimately our country to more financial independence.
Yes, and you're on the right show for that. So you're in financial planning, and the book is about escaping from corporate gig and owning your own business. Most people think of financial planning as an entrepreneurial endeavor, but you were actually salaried. It was actually a corporate gig for you, right?
Yes.
So you were in service provision. You weren't necessarily a rainmaker partner kind of a person at that time.
And that really was not what I wanted to do. I genuinely wanted to be the total geek behind the scenes, doing the research and actually helping implement the financial plans. And so I still had a boss. I had an 8 a.m. start time. I had a 5 p.m. finish time. I lived over an hour from my job. And so I was often spending hours on the road, especially in San Diego traffic on a Friday afternoon. And I often tell the story of coming home one day. It took me 2.5 hours to get home from my corporate job on a Friday afternoon. And I started to cry as I was getting near my house. And I walked in the door and my husband says to me, "Run upstairs, change clothes. We're headed back south to meet our friends for dinner." And I started to hyperventilate, and I told Mike, I said, so one of 3 things are going to happen. I'm either quitting my job, we're selling the house, or I'm leaving you. Oh. And so
poor husband takes the brunt of it, doesn't he?
Oh, God bless him. I have to say that my husband has an infinite amount of patience with me because I am very opinionated and very strong-willed. So he says, okay, well, I guess we're selling the house, because I was the primary breadwinner and we needed my job. So we bought our house, and I would say it was probably about 5 years later that finally I decided I just didn't want the job anymore. And it's really funny, we started this conversation based on that little tug. And you start getting that tug saying, okay, I think there's something different in store for you. But you kind of, if you have a great job and you have a great income and you're dependent on it, you start pushing it down and pushing it down. And you're like, no, I can't pay attention to that because I need to do the responsible thing. And eventually, if you're truly meant to do something else, that tug starts to become a big old pull. And for me, it manifested itself in a lot of different ways. But the biggest way was in my mental health and my physical health, because on Sunday afternoon at about 2:00 in the afternoon, I started to become a raging crazy person. And I was really dreading going into this job that literally had one day been my dream job. I sat at the dining room table with some of the coolest people in the country. But when what you're doing is no longer authentic to who you are, you need to pay attention to that. So between that and the fact that I often say I was drinking a bottle or two of wine on Sunday nights to be able to get to sleep, I was literally doing it as a self-medication. Then all of a sudden that starts to tell you that you're just not in alignment with where you need to be.
So how did you know what you wanted to do next?
Well, I always had a passion for fitness, and it's always something that I have loved, but the finance girl in me could never see it. And I've been Pilates certified since about 2005, but I could never imagine opening a Pilates studio because I couldn't see how to make it profitable. And when I took my first barre class, I walked in and I looked around and I'm like, so there are 25 people in this class. I believe that they're probably paying an average of about $15 a person. The numbers make sense. So then I literally came home and the first thing I did was I started creating little financial models. And I'm like, okay, well, if you have this many people in class and they're paying this is what it looks like.
Oh, I love it.
So I determined immediately that my break even based on my assumptions was 7 people in a class. So I knew that I needed to be able to build a business that I could get more than 7 people in a class, and then it should be profitable. So fortunately, numbers are my thing, and I was very comfortable with running those projections. But one of the things that I talk about in the book is I meet all of these women who have launched businesses and they don't have any business plan at all. And they don't really have any idea where their financial goals are going to take them. And I often kind of say that your business plan needs to be your roadmap. And if you don't have that roadmap and you come to a fork in the road, how do you know which turn to take if you don't know where you want to end up in the long run? So I just feel like it's really important to understand where you are and where you want to go. And then you need to build the business around that. And every single step, you need to consider the finances, because you can leave a great job and build your dream business. But if it's not profitable, it's not going to be your dream business for long.
Right. I mean, you have to be able to put more wood in the fire. Ultimately, you could be on the path to tremendous success. And if you run out of money, lots of great businesses have failed for bad financial management.
Absolutely.
So now I just want to impress upon people the bar that you had to get to. So, you said kind of nonchalantly, we bought our house and then 5 years later, the tug turned it into a pole. Well, you don't have just any house. You have like a 4,000 square foot house in Carlsbad, California. It's a luxury place to live. And, it's a great area, but you have a lot of responsibility. You are the primary breadwinner in your marriage, and you have a mortgage like every month.
We have a $7,000 a month mortgage. And that's what people don't understand, is that sometimes a decision that looks like a great decision at one point may not be a great decision for long. And for us, we bought this house, goodness, I was probably 27, 26 at the time. And I was making amazing money. And Mike actually had a steady paycheck at the time too. He was employed as a salesperson for a software company. And so he also had a steady paycheck coming in. And at the time, everything looked like it was going a certain way. Well, a number of years later, I had a stroke. It was found that we weren't going to have kids. And then all of a sudden, we're sitting here with our 3,800 square foot house and our $7,000 a month mortgage. And all of a sudden, this doesn't necessarily look like the same life that it did at one point. And I would say that that's one thing that I always try to impress upon all business owners is don't be afraid to pivot. If you are somewhere and you realize that maybe it's not the right fit, then you need to be able to make changes. Otherwise, especially if you're running a business, if you're not willing to pivot as necessary, then your business is going to fail.
So the winds of change are blowing for you. I hear you describing this. So you had a high bar, you have a $7,000 mortgage and you are salaried, and then you get your financial ducks in a row and you figure you have some amount of money in savings. So you must have had a timeline. You must have said to yourself, I have X amount of months to make back the original dollar amount I was making before, right? And this is a 6-figure income. So how did you do it?
Well, a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of hard work, and I will tell you, a lot of crying. I would say that my second week in business, I came home probably every single night crying, and I'm like, what on earth was I thinking? Why would I have thought this was a good way to go? And the thing about being a high achiever, if you've ever been someone who has established a number of things in your life and you've achieved things and you're excited and proud of those things, then the next thing that you want to do that at least as well as what you last did. So for me, failure really wasn't an option for a couple of reasons. One, my family couldn't afford it. We really genuinely needed the money. But two, my ego wouldn't have allowed it. So it was a case of literally constantly pivoting, because when I opened my first studio.
And when you say pivot, I know this is all back of the hand for you. This is all unconscious for you, but I just want to point to the places where you make good choices. When you say pivot, you're following profit, right? You're watching your customers' behavior and you're going towards their buying decisions, right?
Always.
Right.
You can never run a successful business if you do not know who you want to serve and what it is that they want. And what you think that they want versus what they really want may not be the same. And you have to be very, very conscious of paying attention. As you're launching a new business, you may genuinely want to be asking. You may want to seek out your target client and really sit down with them and say, okay, I am building my business with you in mind. What is it that I should know about providing this product or this service? And the more information that you can get up front, the better decisions you're going to make and the more profitable you're going to be.
So can you give me an example of something you thought would work in your business and you ended up pivoting, and how you knew to pivot?
Oh my goodness. So the biggest,
just one.
Yeah. The biggest one for me was when I opened the first studio. I was under the impression that my target client wanted me to be in a very nice high-end retail center for our location. And so as such, we invested a fair amount of money into a particular type of build outs, and we were paying over $2,000 more a month than we needed to in terms of our rent on a monthly basis for this particular location. But the other thing that really came out of it is that in our high-end shopping center, we actually had lousy parking. You had to drive through 5 or 6 stoplights to get to that high-end shopping center. And during particular times of the year, based on tourism, it was an absolute nightmare. So when we opened the second studio, it became very apparent that one, we didn't need to spend that kind of money on that type of location, but we were also really looking for a place that was right off the highway, that was not only near residential homes, but also was there near high density business and office, because our clients were a lot different than we necessarily had assumed that they were going to be. So it was important that everything that we did in terms of our location the second time be done with the actual clients that we were bringing through the door in mind, and what they told us their frustrations were with our first location.
Perfect. So you created it for one customer, then you actually got a different customer, and then you started designing for that customer.
Yes.
Instead of going to look for the customer who never showed up.
No. And I mean, you could potentially try that, but I'll tell you that I think it's a lot harder than actually just providing superior service to who already has found you and loves you.
Right. So it's really, as far as getting your financial ducks in a row, it's really two processes happening at once. It's getting your savings in line so that you know that your overhead is covered and you know how many months it's covered. And then there's having kind of a pro forma or an idea of at least what you called your break-even point. How many do I need to sell and at what price until I'm actually recouping my investment? Then everything above and beyond that is profit, or, I can hopefully take as income. And those two things have to work in concert. Okay. And you managed to do that successfully. You said by blood, sweat, and tears. By the way, you're not selling the whole entrepreneurship thing very well. But I do know that you're happy with all of your freedoms and abilities now. So let's get back to the people you say an entrepreneur, would-be entrepreneur, needs to have lined up and in her corner and when she steps out into business. So one of these people is a lawyer. And you've mentioned this several times. And so why do you hire a lawyer before you actually need a lawyer? And what kind of lawyer do you go look for?
Oh my goodness. First of all, your lawyer is going to be the person that will protect everything that you have. So let's just say that you are in corporate and you've amassed some level of fortune or net worth.
Well, you at least have a 401k. You've been saving in the company 401k.
Sure. Your 401k. I mean, any number of things. Let's just say your house, because here in California, your home really is not protected against creditors other than a very small homestead exemption. And so any number of things that you have potentially saved, and then you go and you make a business decision that hurts someone, or you get sued, or any other number of things, everything that you've ever worked for is potentially at risk. So I'm a huge believer in making sure that you protect everything that you've done up until you launch that business, because you literally never know what could happen.
So what kind of lawyer do you need for that?
So you need a business attorney. So for us, we have a general business attorney that kind of has that knowledge of all different aspects of business. But then we also specialize and have a real estate attorney because we have physical locations. And I described earlier that one of our big challenges when we did the first studio was actually with the location. So I believe firmly that you need a really good potential real estate attorney as well.
Okay. And so literally you go out and you find this attorney, and do you sign a contract? Do you need to pay them? Or do you just say, okay, you're my attorney? Or are you saying you want to have them draw up contracts for you?
So our attorney does all of that. Because I have a program that is kind of a business in a box type program, mm-hmm. Our attorney actually does all of the drafting of those documents that go into that program. But for someone that's just starting a business, you basically just want an attorney that you've interviewed. You want to know that they're in line with what it is that you want to accomplish. Ideally, maybe they have some clients that already do what you're hoping to do, and they know your industry a little bit. And then often you'll hire them on an as needed basis, or you'll do a retainer or something along those lines where they will be your one call in the event that you have questions.
Because even let's take the fitness studio. Those people are in your studio. They're being physically active. They are running the risk of being injured. So I imagine when they signed some kind of release that you had prepared by an attorney, and that's critical.
Yes.
Okay.
Everything. And we actually had a situation not too long ago where we had to enforce a dress code, and we had to be very careful about how we said it to not be discriminatory. And that is something that I never would have fathomed when
to enforce a dress code. This sounds like it needs pictures.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if it's appropriate for your audience. So I'll send those to you offline.
Right. And because we have a hyper PC world, you had to be really careful what you actually said.
Yes. And literally, I mean, it could be any number of things, because the other thing is in the fitness world, you also have to be very mindful of people with different types of disabilities. And you genuinely want to be able to give everyone the opportunity to do what it is that you do. But you also want to make sure that everything that you do is completely in line with the state and the local laws and regulations.
So one thing we also want to mention is taxes. And as an entrepreneur, you get to write off. I'm using language that's specific to people who live in the United States. If you don't live here, I imagine you have some deductions or some tax advantages as an entrepreneur that you need to know as well. But, you need to track your money from the beginning so that you can make sure that you can take advantage of those tax benefits.
Sure.
And that's really important. I mean, if you get to the end of the year and you haven't taken certain steps, there's nothing your tax planner can do. So, for example, you want to keep your business money separate from your personal money. You want to either be tracking your mileage in your vehicle or keeping that accounting separate as well. You want to make sure all your expenses you want to have all the receipts and the credit card signatures and everything like that. Anything else that you mentioned specifically in your book? I always tell people to get yourself, just like you're saying, get aligned with a lawyer. I always tell people get aligned with a good tax planner who will talk with you about this stuff and customize it to your life and your business, because it's different for every entrepreneur.
I completely agree. And I can tell you that the reason I led with lawyer is because when I was getting ready to open the studio, the thing that kept me awake at night was what happens if the mirrors break and fall on someone. And so that was like my big what if fear. Now, from a financial standpoint, because that was always my background, I was very well prepared for that. But I also, in the book, really do advocate having a tremendous accountant and bookkeeper. And if they're the same, that's fine. I tend to prefer that they're different, because I feel like having a series of checks and balances is good for your business and for you. But my husband and I have been audited twice. And I will tell you that if you do not have the records and you cannot answer questions clearly and concisely and immediately say, here, Mr. IRS agent, this is what you're looking for, it is not going to be a fun, pleasant experience for you. So you want to make sure that you are documenting everything, that you keep copies of everything, and that you have someone that is advising you to take advantage of the tax laws as much as you can legally without necessarily exposing yourself to undue risk.
Right. And I think this is a perfect example of what I was talking about earlier. There's just no way you can know what an audit is like or how to make it go better unless you know someone who is in that world. And for example, you might think that an audit is you might know that an audit is when the IRS comes after you and goes through your tax returns, and you might have the idea that it's bad, but you might not know that what you really need is a good CPA or EA. EA stands for enrolled agent on your side. You need an advocate in the process. It's the same as having a lawyer in a trial.
Sure.
And you want to have had that tax return prepared by someone who knows what they're doing. I cannot tell you how many people I know who self-prepare their tax returns. They have complex tax situations. They get into trouble. They get audited, and then they have to hire someone, and they end up paying tens of thousands of dollars in back fees because now that tax preparer has to go and essentially do everything he or she would have done to prepare the return in the first place. But now you're in trouble because you owe late fees and the auditors after you, and that tax preparer can't stand behind his or her work because they didn't do it.
Sure. You never know what potential deductions you may be missing, or maybe what you're taking that you shouldn't. And there's nothing worse than getting that letter from the IRS. And I mean, fortunately for me, I really knew that everything that we had was very above board. We did have a great CPA and everything was discussed. But we knew that we were being completely in line with the laws, but that we were taking deductions that maybe weren't necessarily common in a normal family. And that's why you have a tax advisor. Your tax advisor is there to help you find something that you're probably going to miss by doing it through TurboTax on your own.
Right, for sure. I mean, how would you know? Taxes are all about not only IRS regulations, but the IRS's published interpretations of their own regulations and Congress's laws that Congress passes, right? It's very complex, and TurboTax just isn't sufficient if you have any kind of complexity, or especially if you're an entrepreneur, if you own real estate, in my opinion, not just your own home, that's straightforward, but if you have any investment real estate or commercial real estate like that. So, okay. So I think the answer to how to deal with taxes question is from the beginning, track all of your expenses. And then as soon as you have revenue, that's when you need to find a good tax preparer, have a meeting and say, what can I deduct, and start tracking those things right away.
Yes.
So now, Amy, there's something that is really unique about you and this, how to know how to escape from your corporate gig and build a successful business, is that you get started right away talking about how a woman should know who her customer avatar is, who she's serving. And can you say a little bit more about why that's so important?
Sure. So not too long ago, I was actually talking to an entrepreneur who had just gone and done a fairly intensive launch of a new product that she had. And the launch really fell flat. And she had a number of kind of complaints about the launch. One was that she didn't sell very much. And two was that she actually had a bunch of unsubscribes from her mailing list, and she just didn't understand why. And as we were talking about it, the conversation turned to where she said, well, I sent this email to my entire mailing list and no one was really very interested in it. And I said, well, tell me a little bit more about the mailing list. And she started to describe the mailing list, and it was nothing at all like the product that she was putting out. And I said, so just imagine if you're opening your email day after day for, let's say, 7 days or 14 days, and someone that you considered to really get you and understand you is sending you email after email about something that has nothing to do with you, would you lose trust in that person genuinely understanding who you are? So if you're going to debut a new product, or
it's like if my husband came home and started talking to someone and I'm thinking, who are you talking to? Like, have you met me?
Exactly.
I'd be confused.
And if you genuinely want to build a profitable business, just like we were talking earlier, you have to deliver to someone what it is that they actually want. Well, if you don't know who you're delivering something to and what it is that they want, how on earth do you think that you can genuinely give them what they want? So I believe it's tremendously important to step back. And one of the things that we go through in the book, and one of the things that I do with all of my clients, is determine who is your ideal client and really speak to that person. Know everything that you can possibly know about them. What are their biggest pains? What are the things that really keep them up at night? What are the things that they most want to do? And, even though I say that I work harder as an entrepreneur, I genuinely love the fact that on a Wednesday afternoon, I can take off if I want to. And for me, that's well worth something. So if someone's going to pitch me, they should be pitching to the things that I aspire to. I aspire to freedom. I aspire to travel. So it's really important that you understand who you want to speak to, what it is that they need and what it is that they want, and that you actually deliver that.
It's great. I mean, so many business owners spend months, if not years, planning their business, their product, their service. They build their website, they hire coders, they release a thing, and they've never even talked to a customer, let alone, had someone pay for an early version of that product or service just to make sure that it tests well with the market. And
sure.
So what you're talking about is just going to move people miles and weeks and years forward on the timeline and help them avoid failures, because people have to buy what you're selling. They have to already want it. And so, some people, for example, get disgruntled and afraid if they see that they already have competition in the market. But having competition is a good thing because it means people are already buying what you're selling.
Sure. One of the big things that they often say is if you want to launch a business, go to Amazon and just do a Google search, an Amazon search as to whether or not there's any books about it. And if there's no books already about it, then chances are there probably isn't a tremendous interest in it.
It ain't happening.
Yeah. And there's a few very simple ways to do just a little bit of market research before you make any decisions or any financial investments into a potential business endeavor.
Amy, thank you so much. I think not only are you a wealth of knowledge, but personally, since you've already walked the walk and you can talk the talk, I think that you're a great mentor and role model for women. I can't wait to get my hands on a copy of this book. I know I'm going to have it in my hands in just a couple days. And you've made a super generous offer to my audience to give them a free Kindle version of the entire book. Yes,
that's definitely something. This book, I didn't write it because I wanted it to be a tremendous profit center for me. This is a passion project that I have spent at this point probably 3 or 4 years doing. And I really wanted to give women that one place to be able to go and just get some of the basic information about building a business. And it can be for the woman that's in corporate and really wants to make the change, or it could be for the woman that already has launched her business and maybe realizes that she's just not getting to where she wants to go. So stepping back and really making sure that you have the business foundations in place.
And can you say a little bit about, so we're going to link to the download at hillaryhendershot.com/39. So if you're listening, go there to hillaryhendershot.com/39. And can you say a little bit about, I know you've created some worksheets, some cheat sheets, some checklists. Can you say a little bit about what those are going to do?
Sure. So we also have another resource for you that you'll find there. And that is going to be where you will be able to get access to a number of the worksheets that are there in the book. And they'll be in downloadable PDF format where you can print them off and you can actually use them to go through who is your ideal client. Here's a spreadsheet for your budget and actually determining what your personal income and expenses look like. If you were potentially considering creating an online program, here are some of the things that you need to consider. Same thing for some basic launch checklists. So all of the things that if you're thinking about different areas of business, we're going to give you some free checklists from the book.
Awesome. Amy, thank you so much both for an invaluable conversation. And I am blown away that you're giving this book away for free. So I'm so proud to be able to offer it to the Profit Boss Radio audience. And thanks for being a guest here.
Thank you, Hillary. It's always a pleasure.
If you liked this episode, I'm inviting you to join us today in the free private Profit Boss community on Facebook. You don't have to know a super secret password or handshake, but you will benefit from a warm, encouraging, and confidential community who are all there to grow and learn from each other. It's an awesome opportunity to create a classroom out of what you learn here on Profit Boss Radio and in life, and get feedback from how others in the Profit Boss community are achieving financial independence. Some of the really valuable discussions we've had recently in the Facebook group are how to make sure tax time goes super smoothly for you with no stress, what tools people are using to track their spending and make sure they're achieving their financial goals, and also what resources people are using to master their money mind. So plug in and take advantage of the collective wisdom from your fellow profit bosses. Crowdsource the answers to your most important financial questions in a confidential and supportive environment. Just go to hillaryhendershot.com/Profit Boss. That's hillaryhendershot.com/Profit Boss. And that link redirects you to a Facebook group. Just request membership and we'll let you right in. It's free, it's cool, it's awesome, it's supportive. We'll see you there.
Thank you for listening to Profit Boss Radio, where creating success on our own terms happens every day. You're not alone in your journey to a rich life, and that's why Hillary is here to add value in each and every episode. See you next time on the podcast for women and money.